It's Friday. So you know what that means? It's sports reports as ordered. Mike Wilson, a.k.a. 25, coming at you with my guy, Raphael Rutley. We are here today. We're going to talk to you about who is the NBA MVP. One of us might feel a certain way about a guy in Denver. We'll see. Then we're going to transition and we're going to talk about reactions. And I know we did reactions to the trade deadline, but now we're going to make some predictions along with that from what we've seen so far and where we're headed to in the future. Then we're going to talk about what are the Chicago Bears doing. I feel like every week we're talking about what somebody's doing. And this week it's the Chicago Bears. And then we're going to finish it off with a little Jalen Carter recap and thoughts. And then we're going to get into Get It Off My Chest. Raphael, what is the word?
What's going on, man? It's Friday. It's been a good week. It's finally getting a little chilly here in Jersey. But yeah, like I said, man, just a couple times a week, we get to chop up this fellowship. I mean, it's these conversations, good conversation with Skim. We want to shout out everybody that's been following, downloading, watching the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, listening to it, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcast, listen to it. Appreciate the feedback. We're working on it. We're going to get new equipment and everything else. So, we're moving on up. As soon as ESPN gives us that call, the Fox Sports 1 gives us a call, we're on it. We're going to have a nice little studio. But for now, we got the setup here, you got the setup there. So let's get into it. Mike, start us off.
So I was wondering, I've been watching TV, I've been watching these games, I've been trying to dissect and watching it in a different way that I've watched it before. I'm rewatching games a little bit now. So Raph, is Nikola Jokic the MVP for the third year in a row?
If you are really into analytics, he's your guy. If you just simply go off the analytics, he's your guy. I've talked a couple of times in videos how I feel about analytics. Like I said, I understand how they can tell a story, but ultimately you got to go with your gut. You got to go with what you see. I don't think he's MVP because I think that the other top MVP candidates in a head-to-head matchup they have an advantage over him. Well, what they do best versus what he does best, I think they can beat him. We saw when Embiid literally went at him. You'll see it, if you have a guy like Giannis or Jason Tatum. I just think those players' ability to take over games versus just being able to impact the game. I get that a lot of players impact the game. Steve Nash won back-to-back MVPs impacting the game. But when it came down to it, if you were holding everybody out, you're like, listen, we're going to play Steve straight up. We're not going to help. We're going to stay here on these shooters. What can Steve do? You do that to Kobe in those years. Kobe's like, all right, cool. I'm going to go for 52. You do that to Durant. Durant's going to drop 40 on you. Even Westbrook, even though everybody knew he was, I won't say gunning for the triple-double, but he still was averaging 30 with his triple-double. And people talk about, Jokic's record, it's pretty high. Like, I think it's like 23-0 this year when he had a triple-double. Going back to last year, it's like 28 in a row. Russell Westbrook's triple-double record with OKC was just as good. Somewhere there like 80-something and single digits, like 82 and 8 or something like that in his games where he had triple-double. So it's not a matter of just he was, stat padding or whatever. And neither is Jokic. So I get that. If you have an opportunity, if you're getting 10 assists, 11 rebounds, and 25, 26 points, yeah, you're probably going to win a lot of those games. But when it comes down to you match up with the other top 2 or 3 MVP candidates, can you put on a better show than them? I think Embiid can put on a better show than Jokic.
All right, so when I started looking at this, because, before I looked at the numbers and everything, obviously all I had was the eye test. Nikola Jokic makes the right basketball play. So when the season first started, first 20 to 25 games, my initial thought was Embiid was the MVP. As we went on a few more weeks, I started leaning towards Luka, but I knew it couldn't be him because his team didn't have the success. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be on the best team or anything like that, but obviously, like, it would behoove you to have a high seed if you want to be the MVP. So, so I eliminated Luka out the way. Then I thought about Donovan Mitchell for a second just because Cleveland, what are they doing? Like, wow. And then I landed on Giannis and I said, okay, but what is Giannis doing that I haven't seen Giannis do before? So not from the standpoint of trying to use his past against him or anything like that. But to me, he isn't necessarily standing out this season in the way that he did in his MVP seasons. Now, the last couple of weeks, that's a little different because he's had these 50-point games and all that kind of stuff like that. But then it hit me. And I'm not saying this person is the MVP, but it hit me. I said, wow, look at Jason Tatum up there. He might not be better than Jaylen Brown, but he got an MVP case. So then I started doing a little digging, right? So what I came up with is Jokic, going to your point, like the analytic dream. So the Nuggets are 20.2 points better per 100 possessions when he's on the court this season. And that's courtesy of Kurt Hyland from NBC Sports. And I hope I said your name right. But when I looked at Tatum, when you look at real plus minus, because, that's the big thing now, plus minus, Tatum has actually been the highest impact player in the NBA, when it comes to real plus minus, but I wanted to look at the two big men, Jokic and Embiid, because those were my two, I thought, that were button heads over this award, right? So what I came up with is Embiid allows 3/4 of a point. I think that's how you say that. 0.75 points per chance to opponents as the ball handler defender when he's an isolated defender. So that's in isolation, which is 11th best in the NBA. Jokic is at 0.99, but of course, numbers. That ranks him at 123rd. You can't be my MVP defending like that, first of all. Second of all, with real plus minus, when it comes to net point differential per 100 defensive possessions, Jokic is 6th. Offensive possessions, Jokic is 6th and Embiid is 7th. So where Embiid is better than Jokic defensively, Jokic isn't that much better than Embiid offensively. Like, he obviously doesn't score more. He's averaging a triple-double, so he has that going for him. So I'll lay it like this, Raph. I think Jokic will win the MVP award. I think they will give him the MVP award. But for the moment, I think I'm leaning Tatum, but I got to let Embiid play some more games to catch up because he's missed the most games out of these people we're talking about.
Yeah, but the problem with the MVP is the same issue we were having back with college football with the BCS. Similar to what we have now with the preseason top 25, so forth and so on, is that you put players or teams or coaches or whatever in this rank and file order when everything is 0-0. No one scored a point. No one's won a game. The clock hasn't struck, at all. So when you put Jokic up there and then his numbers seem to back up the fact that you put him up there, it's like he hasn't done anything to come down. But when you have that ceiling for these other guys who are at 2, 3, and 4, because it shouldn't be more than like 5 players that are in your MVP. 5 is a good, it's an odd number, but it's a good round number to have like 5 guys in any league, any sport, whatever the case may be, those top 5 guys. So if you put a guy up at 1 preseason and then he plays to his level, which Jokic is a 2-time MVP, he's an all-star, he's a great basketball player, and the rest of these guys also play great, it doesn't make a difference because my basketballreference.com, I got the top 10 candidates right now. You got Jokic, Embiid, Giannis, Luka, Tatum is your top 5. Rounding out the top 10, you got James Harden, DeMontis Sabonis, Dame Lillard, John Morant, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. According to this probability percentage, Jokic is at 69.6% probable to win the MVP. So I asked, what did he do to have a 62% advantage on the second guy? Like, is he that much better than Embiid to the point where it's like, you know what? It's so likely that he's going to win. Like, it's not even, it can't be closer. It's not 30, maybe a couple of 20s. Like, he's that far ahead. I don't think he's that far ahead other than the storyline of that put him up there from the beginning. So that's why I swing hard on the pendulum with the matchups. It's like if you're so much better than everybody else, then that should be reflected in your performance against everybody else. And this last game we saw against him and Embiid, which I think those are going to be your final two guys. Like all these other guys, they will trickle in there, but I don't think Tatum can leapfrog Giannis because I think Giannis, his game, it looks like he's playing harder. Tatum looks real smooth. So when he's off, it doesn't look like he's trying. It's like he's just missing shots. Whereas Giannis can just be going hard to the hoop. Maybe he misses a floater, whatever the case may be. But with Embiid, he's so big. He plays so skilled. He plays like they ran that highlight with the Kobe or the Jordan, Kobe, Embiid, like the superimposed, like each one of the players. He's doing Kobe moves at 285 pounds. So, but the fact that they put Jokic up so high, it's just hard for him to punch through that ceiling. He can't get first team All NBA because they're both listed as centers. So it looks like his career, it looks like he's second tier to Jokic, but it's like you only get one spot. And then for the All-Star voting, it's front court players versus back court players. So do you get your small forwards, your Kevin Durant, your Jason Tatums, and those guys? They take spots from him because he's not a front court, So it just always seems like there's something in the way with Embiid, but yet when you put him in front of these guys who are compared to him, even the shot that didn't count against Boston. I mean, that's an 80-foot push shot from a 7-footer who can also hit the game-winning three against Toronto in the playoffs. I just think that what he does, I think as far as like the MVP, the way it looks, the optics, the eye test, I got Embiid over Jokic.
Well, this is what I don't want. If you want to vote for Jokic, vote for Jokic. But don't not vote for Jokic because Larry Bird and Wilt Chamberlain won 3 MVPs in a row, and you don't view him the same as you view them, so you don't want him to be on that level.
Yeah, that'd be flawed. That'd be a flaw.
Yeah, don't not vote for him. Don't not vote for him because LeBron didn't win 3 MVPs in a row, and many people feel he should have. So don't punish him because somebody else got punished.
And get 100% because Babe Ruth didn't for the Hall of Fame vote, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't give him the MVP because he was the runner-up to Jokic last year, and you're trying to create a storyline, or you feel he deserves it because of that. Just vote for who you feel is the MVP because we all have our own reasons. But like you said, to your point, the narratives, because every time I turn on a show and watch somebody, they're talking about Jokic is the best passer in NBA history, and like all this kind of stuff. So it overinflates, because he's doing great things. Don't get me wrong. And, he is an analytic dream. He is making the right basketball play. He's doing all those things that he deserves to get credit for.
Basketball player.
Yeah.
But just to lock him in at 1.
No. And see, and where like I think Tatum will get some votes is just from the standpoint of, well, up until Milwaukee's current 16-game winning streak, Boston had the best record in the league for 3/4 of the season. So like that, I ain't gonna say that doesn't matter, but I'm working on it. Like part of my bias is when I look at things like MVP, a couple of years ago, I might have looked at somebody like Sabonis because I'm looking at somebody on a team that nothing was expected of, and they came out of the blue. Like I thought Chris Paul should have had a couple of MVPs, but that's just how I looked at things. So I'm trying to attack this.
Nash for Chris Paul not getting MVP. It goes in waves. It's like the triple-double thing. I'm surprised Jokic is getting the love that he's gotten because Westbrook's MVP was because of the triple-double. I mean, he played great, but it was like the storyline there was Oscar Robertson's record, average a triple-double. So I'm surprised it hasn't really soiled the Jokic case because we had these narratives. But like the Chris Paul doesn't get MVP votes because Steve Nash got back-to-back MVPs.
Right.
When he didn't deserve it. Flat out didn't deserve it. I don't care what you say, LeBron or Kobe those years, they were clearly MVP.
Yeah, like for example, I thought Chris Paul should have won MVP the OKC year. just because he literally drugged that team. Granted, I think they finished as the 5 seed, so it wasn't like they jumped. Huh?
They were trying to tank when they got him.
I know, that's what I'm saying. And he just grabbed them and said, no, we're not doing this. But like what Jason Tatum has going for him is that he's averaging career highs in 6 different categories. But when I think about that logically, that sounds more most improved than it does MVP. So, so I think that hurts him in that way, just from my vantage point. As far as Luka goes, he definitely has the statistical profile to be an MVP, but the team success just isn't there. And I ain't talking about where their seed is or whatever, but they're only 2 games above 500 right now. So, so I can't have him in that situation. So going back to your point of having 5 guys, at most in your MVP conversation, I think we're almost at the point where we're just at 3. I think right now, as of this moment that we're having this conversation, I think it's Jokic, Embiid, or Giannis, at this point. And like I told you when we had our pre-meeting,
good stories for the future.
Right. So one of the things that I just looked at this just randomly. So, when I was looking at it, Embiid has missed 13 games. Giannis has missed 12. Jokic has only missed 8. Tatum's only missed 4. So, going back to the whole like availability is the best ability, that was the one thing that I used to kind of knock Embiid, because we were talking about EPRs, like enlisted performance reports for all you out there that don't know. Basically everybody's going to look like a rock star. Everybody looks like they're the best at their job. They knocked it out. They did all the volunteering. They're awesome. But then you got to find a way you got to stack people, to figure out who's better than who. And you start nitpicking. So each person has their own criteria, but you can't follow the criteria when the storyline is so dominant.
Yeah. So, but with the MVP, and I get it, for a league that has such a media stronghold, and the media tends to basically ignore the regular season unless they're talking about the MVP. I mean, granted, now people are starting to talk about load management more because a lot of guys load manage after the All-Star game when they already had like 8 or 9 days off and they missed games before. So I think people are kind of getting upset with that. I think the ticket price, everything else. But the media, they're like engulfed in this MVP argument, but they're willing to just allow guys to not play games and not be in the running for the MVP because they want to be ready for the playoffs. So it becomes a situation where is the award, like, what's more valuable, the regular season MVP or the Eastern Conference, Western Conference MVP, and then the Finals MVP? Because that's ultimately, if Jokic doesn't get those awards, then when people talk about this 10, 12 years from now on different podcasts and TV shows, then there's going to be, well, yeah, he won 3 MVPs in a row. Like, yeah, but he didn't win a single Western Conference MVP. They just made this award up. So it's like, plenty of people could have gotten it before, but he would have been able to get it like Steph got it last year, the Magic Johnson Award, or a guy in the East winning the Larry Bird Award, or even the Finals MVP. So it's like, are you getting all the awards? Are you getting the postseason awards? Because with Giannis has had the same MVP numbers that he had the 2 years that he won it the last 2 years, and he has them this year. Essentially, they're almost identical. So for 5 years, 2 of which he won MVP, 3rd year he was Finals MVP, and then last year they got knocked out of the playoffs, and now this current year. So he has 5 years of prime numbers, but yet he's in this ranking, he's 3rd in the MVP. So a guy who doesn't have the postseason success, and I get that it's a regular season award. So, like, hopefully they do pick up and understand, like, okay, he's having a great year, but Embiid is potentially having a better one.
Well, here's another cardinal rule. Don't not vote for your MVP candidate because you're trying to project what they're going to do in the playoffs. Because I heard that like a couple of days ago on, one of the NBA podcasts that I listened to, and the guy was saying like, well, the Nuggets, I don't think they're going to make the finals, or I don't think they're going to make it to the Western Conference Finals. So how can he be the MVP? But like you said, it's a regular season award. And last time I checked, and I know you got a retort for this, so I'm going to let you get it off real quick. But, Jokic has made a Western Conference Finals. Luka has made a Western Conference Final. Tatum has made a NBA Final in the Eastern Conference Finals. Embiid has not made it out of the second round. It's not his fault. But he hasn't made it out the second round. Why is that, Raph?
Well, Kawhi traveled. Talk about that. And then Ben had a dunk they didn't take. Granted, he shouldn't have been in that situation with the Hawks. I mean, maybe Embiid, he just ran up against teams that just had a better matchup in those years.
I think he had a single-digit game in that series too.
I'm not saying he's an all-time great.
Right,
He has got to work towards that. But year after year, he has proven that he, as an individual player, because it's an individual award. I know it's some team elements to it, like your team can't go 30 and 52 and you win MVP. It's unlikely in today's age. Maybe in the 60s when they played whatever amount of games, somebody just was outstanding and they didn't care about the record and they won MVP.
Yeah, maybe somebody can win the finals on the losing finals MVPs on the losing team.
I like shout out to Jerry West, the logo. But I just think that Jokic does have such an advantage because all the odds makers every week. He's not doing anything week to week to drop himself. His team they're not going on 5-game losing streaks. He's not going 4 for 18, 4 or 5 games in a row, or his team's not 2 and 12 in the last 14. So he won't do anything to bring down his current status. I just think that Embiid should get elevated for the fact that I think he, as an individual, because I think if you look at this numbers, I think the numbers are a wash. I think what Jokic brings numbers wise, and what Embiid brings numbers wise are a wash. So you got to look at the matchup and you got to look at the eye test. Which guy is doing it better? Which guy you think is playing better basketball? Which guy you think can dominate the other team on both ends of the floor? I think Embiid can do that better than Jokic.
Yeah, and there was something that you said in our pre-meeting that I thought was, very relevant, from the standpoint of you can tell Embiid, hey, big man, we need 40 tonight, and he'll go out and do that and, still get you 14 rebounds and some other stuff. Whereas with Jokic, whereas Jokic, I think he could go out and get 40 if he needed to or whatever. I just don't know if he could do it consistently. Like Embiid could probably do it for a series. Like he can average 32 for a series. I don't know if Jokic is that type of player that would try to even average 32 in a series. So, but obviously it's more than scoring. And that's the argument that Jokic has is that, like I said, he's averaging a triple-double and he's a center. Like I could just imagine what we would be talking about if somebody like, say, LeBron James was averaging a triple-double for a season. I know.
He's just the guy that has the basketball. He's being guarded by another person who's labeled as a center. And it's not like he's out there with Kyrie level handles playing center. He's just a big dude using his big body, making great passes. I'm not trying to downplay.
Right.
But I think people say, oh, well, he's a center. Like, yeah, he has the ball the whole time. He's basically Luka with a few more inches of height and maybe a few more pounds. He just handles the ball. Like the way their offense works, he handles the ball.
Well, one of the things that stood out to me as well is I was trying to look at the supporting cast. So, like bringing Jason Tatum back into the conversation for a second, he has Jaylen Brown. He has the reigning defensive player of the year in Marcus Smart. He has the NBA leader in 3-point percentage right now, Malcolm Brogdon. I remembered his first name this time on the first try. And then when I look at Embiid, he's got Harden, who you just said was on that same list, as like, I think number 6 or number 7.
Yeah, that's cool.
Right. And you have Tyrese Maxey, who is potentially 6th man of the year, or at least in the conversation. And then when I look at Jokic, Jamal Murray is back. he's been playing good. But he obviously played his best basketball of his career in the bubble as far as numbers and what he was contributing. But then you got Michael Porter Jr., who, I'm just happy to see the dude on the court because he's, back issues and all that kind of stuff.
Time for a young guy, man. That back was killing him.
Yeah, but so when we were talking about defense and Jokic's shortfalls, it's not like Michael Porter is making that up. You know what I mean? Like Aaron Gordon, depending on what you think of him, he's obviously talented, but Aaron Gordon is not like KG or Tim Duncan or something along those lines. So when I look at it, I think Jokic probably has the worst, and that's not an insult. I don't mean that as an insult, but just comparatively speaking, I think other candidates have better supporting cast. Giannis has an argument because Chris Middleton's been in and out the lineup. So from that standpoint, he hasn't had his number two. So Drew Holiday has had to step up. So I mean, like, just looking at it that way, I can see how people can get to Jokic being the MVP. He's not my MVP, but I can see how people can get to that. And I think that besides him and Embiid, and if people want to include Giannis, I don't think that there's like you brought up Devin Booker, and how he should have got some votes. Yeah. So this isn't that type of year. Like, I brought up Donovan Mitchell, because I was looking at the Cavs record, but all he really brings to the table is scoring, is for the most part when you look at his numbers and, what he does. So, I mean, he had the 71-point game, he had 11 boards in that game, but for the most part, when I see Donovan Mitchell, I just see a scorer, whereas when I look at Tatum, I see someone who can score, who does a lot of things like the Cordell Stewart. He's like Slash.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, I think the only reason that I didn't put Embiid over Jokic, like I said, was just the missed games. That was the only thing. But is Jason Tatum not load managing or something? Like, what's going on?
Well, I mean, when you're in your 20s, you don't need to load manage.
I guess not, but
just practice left. Like, when I hear these guys play a 48-minute basketball game, just don't practice for 6 hours that week. Practice for 2, film, and just guys get massages, stretch, do some yoga. Like, it's not like they're gonna forget how to play basketball if you don't practice super hard week. If you have a couple of back-to-backs, or if you have 4 games in 7 nights, or whatever the stipulations are, all right, take a break and practice. Get the best hotels. Get little machines that massage these guys while they sleep. I mean, just do other things. Because, like I said, we were talking about this money. You charge me $200 for a ticket. It to be here.
Jump up in those hyperbaric chambers, So
with them.
So just to make sure that I got this correct, you have Embiid as your MVP, but you probably think that it's going to be given to Jokic.
I think because where he started off, he hasn't done anything to fall off, and I think it's unlikely that voters are going to be like, well, we know he started here and he's just been consistent all year long. Now we're going to move him to 2. It just seems unlikely.
Okay. And then for me, for the record, I'm going with Tatum, but they're going to give it to Jokic. So with that being said, we had the trade deadline a couple of weeks ago. We've had some time to watch these new versions of these teams. What you seeing, Raph?
What I'm seeing is that Russell Westbrook can't do anything without being criticized. It doesn't matter. He plays hard. He's tough. He's a good teammate. No matter what. But the last night, with the way Draymond was guarding him, he should have taken a pause, taken a breath, and knocked down those threes. Like, if people are going to guard you the way they guard Draymond, and Draymond's acting like, he's talking about, when you get left open that many times, it works on your confidence, and so you start thinking more. I'm like, bro, we watch TV in 4K. We see people defend you the same way when you're outside the 3-point line. You don't even look at the rim. So he can stop acting like he's doing some new Jedi mind trick on Russell Westbrook, because they did it to you. that's where you got it from. Because the last series, yeah, you won a championship last year, but nobody was guarding you 23 feet out. They guard you if you came in and you was doing like a little pick and roll with your hips, sticking your hip out to get Clay open. But other than that, they were leaving you wide open from three also. I had a lot of over-unders. Draymond hitting two and a half threes. I'm like, but I had 1.5. Okay, maybe I hit 2. But I had plenty of nights where it was like Draymond over-under threes, 0.5. I'm like, he went ahead. But Russell, I think people are going to look at the record. It could be a streak where just guys got to gel. I don't think he should be starting, but for some reason he is. I know, like, I think it'd be better if you bring him in with the second unit. That way the second unit has to go to his speed, like you talked about in our pre-meeting. Kawhi doesn't play fast. Paul George could because he played with Russ before. And I think he's maybe, I won't say a little bit more athletic than Kawhi, because insinuating that Kawhi isn't athletic. But I think Russ just plays faster. You want to put it in there with younger second unit guys. Maybe go a little small ball. That way they can't play him the way they were playing him, shoot the three. It's like, oh, I'm coming downhill all day. I think the Lakers, all their trade moves, they're all good, except the fact that LeBron's going to be reevaluated in 3 weeks. And that's late March. Season basically wraps up, the 20th? Oh, the playoffs begin April 15th. If he's getting reevaluated on the 20th of March, 21st, I mean, like, that's barely 20 days, 20 calendar days. And how many games you're going to have in there? How many home games? How many back-to-backs you're going to have? How many, is he going to be in a rest when he comes back? Is he going to try to come back too early and re-aggravate it? So I think all those moves they did were for naught, because the same thing that's plagued them all year long, or like the last few years, it's the injury bug. LeBron and AD were both injured when they played against Phoenix when they were 7 seed, because that's when LeBron hurt his ankle, Solomon, whatever, dove on it. So I think the Lakers, the injuries is going to be tough. Kyrie, Luka, neither one of them really known for defense. I think the move, is a good swing for the fence. I think it was a la Toronto, San Antonio getting Kawhi. It's like, you hire this mercenary. Can this sniper take out the targets from April until the end of May? Can you hoist the Larry O'Brien trophy with this combination player? No one thought Dirk could beat the Miami Heat, the Heatles. But you get in there, you got a shot. You got a shot. That's all you need. So I think getting Kyrie in there is a good shot. A healthy Suns team should win the West, if not winning it all. So I think KD to the Suns, like even Trae Young had to laugh about it. Like, he's like, KD's really on the Suns. So those are the 4 teams people are going to talk about. I know a lot of teams made moves. I know Portland traded Josh Hart during the warm-ups, which is going to make Dame Lillard want to go to Utah. That's a different story, different conversation we've already had before. But I think those are your 4 major teams that made moves and impacts. And I think that's, as of right now, I think the Suns are your most likely to be successful for long, like this season, be successful. I think they're going to have the most successful result. I think the Mavs are going to have a good result, but I don't know if it's good enough to keep Kyrie, because the West, granted, it's not like there's no juggernaut, but they do have a tough road out West, especially with Denver, Suns, a healthy Warriors team, and then so you just have so many elements to fight through. So I think the Lakers are out of it. I think they're done. I think they're going to wrap their season up here before St. Patty's Day. They're going to be like, yeah, we're done. I think the Clippers still got a shot. They just got to figure out where do you put Russ.
Well, you remember when we were talking about if we saw a team out there that could do what Boston did last year, I literally said it has to be the Clippers, but they signed Russell Westbrook, because Terrence Mann has been playing well, and I think he could be that starter, to replace Westbrook. Westbrook is in the 6th man of the year conversation. So that is something that he is equipped to do. He can come off the bench, but now going back to what we were saying, Westbrook gets that ball and he wants to go, like Kawhi ain't doing that. We're just hoping that Kawhi can make it through this postseason run. So we're not trying to aggravate anything. We're not trying to force him to put some horsepower in there that he doesn't have. So but also Paul George, when they were in OKC together, they didn't get out the first round. They lost in 5 games to the Jazz. So it's not as if they had success before, to where we can go, oh, you got the band back together? The Clippers are coming. But I do think that the Clippers, where they are right now, they haven't won since the All-Star break. I don't expect them to go over for the rest of the season. They're going to win some games. We'll see where they end up. But all I know is I woke up this morning and I saw that the Suns are the 4 seed and the Warriors are the 5. Give me that matchup. But I do agree that Phoenix is probably going to end up being the front runner. Odds. We were talking about Jokic and the percentages and the odds. People are going to have the Suns as the 1 seed. So I'm sorry, Denver. If it came down to you and Phoenix, I'm probably going to pick Phoenix. And I like how you made it through that whole conversation about how tough the West was going to be and all this stuff, and you didn't even mention the 2nd seed. But anyway, Dallas. Dallas, I was the one that was high on Dallas. I said that they should feel that they could go into a playoff series with almost anybody in the West and feel like they have a shot to win that series. So I'm going to step it back a little bit, and I'm going to say, Dallas, the key for you is that number 6 seed and get the Kings. That's your key right there. Get the Kings in the first round. I'm not saying that you're going to automatically win that series because Mike Brown is my coach of the year. I'm just saying, get them.
You're just saying you want them to play to get the matchup against the Kings.
Right.
Whatever.
Right. So because I think that...
Are you prolonging the inevitable?
Maybe. But look, the Golden State Warriors have showed us over the last 7 or 8 years, all you got to do is survive and somebody might get injured to help you win a title, but from Dallas, I like Dallas.
I like Dallas too. I just think the lack of defense is going to hurt them in the playoffs. Cause like you said, in the playoffs, it lets you grab a little more.
Mm-hmm. But it's narratives, right? Because coming into last night, they were 1-4, since the trade. But then they went and beat Philadelphia last night. I think in 2 of those 4 games that Dallas lost literally came down to the last shot. So it's not as if they're out here getting blown out or, they're losing, they were close and then the game ends up a 10-point loss or whatever. They're in these games, and I think that they have a Christian Wood problem because he gets numbers, but I can't never tell you what he actually contributes. So I think that's going to be their downfall. Because
it's weird when you have those kind of players that they're on the floor, and you're like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's like Julius Randle. I mean, I don't want to keep picking on Julius Randle, but it's like Julius Randle. The Knicks are doing good since they got Josh Hart. They're on their little streak themselves. They're hot. You know what I mean? But Julius Randle is that guy that might get you 27 and 13, and then you still lose by 15 points, and you're like, what happened? That's Christian Wood. There's going to come a game where he's going to put up 29, 10 boards, and Dallas is still going to lose by about 8 or 9 points. And you're just going to try to figure out how did this happen. So that's their downfall, I think. Looking at the Suns, we obviously don't have enough data yet. This is KD's 2nd game with them. First one went really well. Second one looks good. But remember that first game, see, this is the thing, right? You got to look at the schedule. Shout out to Woody Page, because on Around the Horn, he told everybody all the time, look at the schedule. KD's first game was against who?
Charlotte.
It was against Charlotte. Who he playing tonight? He playing Brooklyn tonight. The Bulls. I'm sorry. He's playing the Bulls tonight. So look at the schedule. You know what I mean? So right now, he's supposed to look good. These are good games to get him back into the swing of things. So I think that I like the fit because Kevin Durant, as far as a superstar goes, I don't want to insult Easy Money Sniper because we've said enough about him, but he's not that typical superstar that comes in and owns the room. So you can put him in these lineups and in these situations and it's not going to disrupt anything because he just fits. He'll play his role as long as he can get his shots.
Fit, right? You talking about fit? I'm
looking
at live right now. Kevin Durant, he's played 27 minutes, 7 for 10, 2 for 4 from 3, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 20 points.
That's what I'm saying. He just fits.
He's probably not even sweating.
Yeah. So when he went to Golden State, for example, you know, like if you were to put, say, young Carmelo in that situation, it doesn't look the same because Melo want the shots. Melo want to be the man. KD knew going to the Warriors, like, this is Steph's team. I should get all the shots that I want, like as far as like easy looks and all that. It makes the game easier, and I think that's what he has with the Suns right now. The game is easier because Devin Booker is going to be, and I don't mean this because he's not, but Devin Booker is going to be the chucker. You know what I mean? And Chris Paul lives to set other people up, so that works out for them.
Booker is 6 for 10 from 3. I didn't think he shot that many threes. He must be feeling it tonight.
I mean, hey, he's got a 70-point game under his belt.
71,
you know, whatever, 70. But you know, but yeah, so I think that's where we are. I think that Phoenix is obviously the best equipped to go on a run after the moves that have been made. They're the team that should look at everybody else and say, we got easy money sniper and you don't. So
the trade robbery of this trade deadline.
Yes.
Like a big sport that we can think about in the last calendar year. They robbed Brooklyn.
See what I would like to see though, from that standpoint of the fit and all that stuff and making, you know, having easier shots. Maybe the Clippers could be their kryptonite, you know, with Paul George and Kawhi being able to switch off of him and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, let's get this straight. Those dudes don't play defense. I don't know where this came from. I don't know where these two they're not good wing defenders. They're long and they're tall, 6'9" and like 6'7" and some change and like gigantic hands, but they don't play defense. Luka averages like 40 against them in the playoffs.
Hey, but we saw easy money.
40 has.
We saw easy money sniper struggling with Chris Paul guarding him in the post before. So like having those long arms matter.
That was a long time ago. I'm talking about right now. If y'all are sitting right here still talking about Kawhi and Paul George are elite defenders,
hey,
y'all are tripping.
You said it yourself. You said it yourself that Kawhi said, I'm getting ready for the playoffs. So, you know what I'm saying? So Kawhi can step it up in the playoffs. He's going to step it up. You know what I mean? I don't know what the Clippers going to be, but what I would find hilarious is if the Clippers ended up in the play-in. That would be hilarious, you know, because Golden State is now up to 5, you know. So where are we? Give me that Phoenix. Give me Phoenix and give me Golden State and give it to me now.
Right now, so the play-in goes 7-11, 8 versus 9, right? Or no?
7-10, yeah.
7-10, okay.
Yeah.
So that would give you Clippers, Pelicans. The Lakers are like a game back of the Pelicans.
Portland's right there.
The Spurs, I thought the Spurs were trying to tank. I guess Houston said, hold my beer, watch what we could do.
Well, the Spurs, you know, were also on like a 16-game losing streak, too.
The Rockets are going to end up with this Wembanyama kid, and it won't work out.
And speaking of which, side note, you know, what's all this talk about Harden going back to Houston?
I don't know. I think people are just bored with the other stuff that's going on with sports, so we got to make.
But these are like execs saying this though. These are execs saying that they see that happening.
I don't believe any exec ever because I don't think they tell the truth. I think most of them are probably lawyers, or they work closely with lawyers. And if you ever talk to a lawyer, they will smooth talk with the best of them.
This is true.
So yeah, with these trades, I think a lot of teams, I felt as if teams were making moves simply because another team made a move, want to stand pat, and then have somebody leapfrog you. But making too many moves can, you know, I won't say destroy your chemistry because it can be rebuilt, but diminish your chemistry. And you have to rebuild it. And if you don't have a guy that can slide in, like I mean, Kevin Durant's like ranch dressing. I mean, wings, pizza, salad. I mean, you could have it on the table at any restaurant. Like, you know what? Everybody that's eating here can use this. Some of these guys are barbecue sauce. You can't put barbecue sauce on a hot dog.
Well, you know, as the 2-5 guy I am, I'm more of a blue cheese kind of guy. But you know,
you put blue cheese. You can put blue cheese on a burger. You can eat chicken wings with it. Some people eat it with just like lunch, like cottage cheese. You know, you can be versatile, like, and Kevin Durant is that. But a lot of these other guys have to fit. Russ has to fit. Like, he's a puzzle piece. You gotta have that cutout to put him in it. If you have him there, then it's a bonus. But if you are trying to put square peg, round hole, it's not going to work out.
Oh yeah, and let's not forget that the Clippers lost one of these games, 176-175. By the way,
and the thing about that should be considered very entertaining. And what do we get the next day? The league was talking about putting a cap because they don't want players playing too many minutes. These dudes are in their 30s. 30s. Man, I was doing crazy stuff in my 30s. I'd go out all night long, party, shower, go to work, smell like beer and cologne, work all day, get off work, take a nap, and get right back at it. And I was nowhere near pristine physical of these athletes. You mean to tell me they can't play basketball for 40 minutes with breaks?
They don't even got to play for 40 because you know I'm still mad. I'm still mad about my FanDuel and Dame Lillard and Jeremy Grant. I'm still mad about that. You know, when they had 3 days off afterwards and you rested them because they were on the plane and they got delayed.
I was home. Just get a nice hotel near the airport because there's always a Marriott connection.
Get a hotel at the airport.
At the airport. California king-size bed. It's like you were in the NBA franchise and you're like, oh, those guys are tired. They had to go home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, look. I'm holding you to the fire right now. The Suns winning the West?
They're 10 games back of 1, 5 games back of 2. Ask me this Friday.
This is Friday.
Next Friday, you say. Next Friday. Ask me next Friday.
All right.
Like I said, if you look at it on the surface, if you look at it in the vacuum, healthy Booker, Durant, Craig, Paul, Ayton. I just realized we hadn't said anything about Ayton. Yeah.
And they still got campaign too.
They're winning the West.
They're winning the West. Okay, y'all heard it here first. According to Mr. Rutley, the Suns are winning the West.
Yeah, and I'm gonna get some orange and black Air Force Ones if they do.
You know,
Durant jersey.
Feet to the fire. Feet to the fire. I'm probably going to have to agree with you. But this is what I want to – if they play the Warriors in the first round, I pray for Easy Money Sniper that he wins that series. Because if he gets sent home by the Warriors –
No. If that happens, we can talk about that all summer long until preseason starts.
Yeah, if he loses that series, he's not Easy Money Sniper. He's not KD. You just Kevin that play ball.
Yeah, but we know that Golden State they're gonna lose the road games.
I don't know. They might have been playing possum,
I don't get. Like I said, I watch a lot of Warriors games. I love watching them play. I went to the Jazz game. I think the first Jazz game I went to was the Warriors and Jazz. It was a while ago, maybe 2011, something like that. So it was a while ago. Steph was out there just when he had the low fade, no beard. I like the way the season's shaping up. I think all the stuff, all the ancillary stuff, the off the court stuff with certain guys, the contracts, the legacies, the awards, the records. I think all of that stuff is just. I think it's more entertaining. Even the load management argument, I think, is a very entertaining piece of the conversation with basketball because it's not just simply guys playing basketball. It's everything that comes with it. Like, it's not just a movie. It's all of the actors, the actor that was supposed to be in the movie, the director of the movie, like the whole thing. And then you get to see the movie. So you follow the Marvel movies. You follow who's going to be this guy. You've watched the end credit scene. So, like, watching the NBA to me is like that. It's like it's all of these superpowers kind of coming together. And I want a good output. I want guys to play. I want guys to be healthy. I want all teams healthy and see what you got. Mm-hmm. I think that's the best way to do it. And I think right now it's shaping up to be quite entertaining. You never know, man. We might have a good run with the Knicks. The Knicks might just be like, you know what? It's playoff time. It's the same thing we were talking about the NCAA tournament. When you have that one guy that can turn it on and get you to 40 unexpectedly, and he get you those points. That could be Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, a guy you're not a big fan of, but he gets the right matchup. And he's on. And I think that's a big deal. I think just having sports, I think this year is probably like the first year in a while you can't pick out the champion.
Oh, yes, I can.
You want to?
Oh, yes,
Boston?
I can.
You can say Boston and Phoenix, but it could easily be Milwaukee and Denver. It could be Memphis and Milwaukee.
Well, at this moment, I feel that I know that either Boston or Milwaukee is going to win the title, like the whole title. The only reason that I wouldn't pick Boston if I don't pick Boston is the whole new coach thing. Like this is the playoffs, like whatever. That would be the reason that I wouldn't pick Boston. But if Ime was there, I'm probably picking Boston.
But you got Philly.
I don't got Philly.
Philly has, well, according to basketballreference.com, they have 2 MVP candidates in the top 10. I think you can only have one per team because it's an MVP.
I don't got Philly. I think that this is the year that Philly could make the Eastern Conference Finals, but I just
Brown has a tight hamstring and he misses 1 or 2 games. He misses the first 2 games. I'm not wishing injury, but something is like I think we're so close at every. I don't think there's a blowout. So you got right now, if it holds firm, first round you got Nuggets, Timberwolves. Anthony Edwards is exciting. Maybe they go down in 5. Maybe they still won an extra one and it goes 6. That's exciting. Grizzlies, Clippers. Come on now. Ja Morant, the new Westbrook with the old Westbrook.
I want to hear it. Come on.
That. Okay. So
okay.
Then you give me Kings, Mavericks. That can go either way. That's a 6. That's a 3-6. And then your 4-5, your dream matchup, Suns, Warriors. So it's like last year when Boston matched up with Brooklyn in the first round. I think it was like Mike Breen or Jeff Van Gundy. I think it might have been Stan Van Gundy. He was like, hey, the crazy thing about this series is that both of these teams came into the season with championship aspirations, and one of them is going to be gone in the first round. And this was like the first game. It's like both of these teams have championship caliber talent, coaching. Steve Nash wasn't a great coach, but they had the players. Ime Udoka was doing a great job. Boston had been, they've been to multiple conference finals. And it's like both of these teams have championship aspirations. They could be out in the first round. That could be the same thing with this 4-5 matchup with the Suns versus the Warriors. Both of those teams, Warriors defending champs, the Suns made this move for KD. They could be like, yo, we about to win it all. But one of those teams are going home. The Kings might not have those aspirations, but the Mavericks, they traded away, assets to get Kyrie, but didn't re-sign him. So it's like, this might be our only shot. And they're a 6 seed going up against a 3, and a 3 has a coach that's been to the finals.
Yeah.
So it's like it's so many things going on.
But also don't forget,
it's exciting to me.
But also don't forget Dallas went to the Western Conference Finals last year, and so if they did it without Kyrie, I don't see why they couldn't.
2 at one point against Phoenix in that closeout game.
Mm-hmm. And so when it comes to Philly, being a Florida State fan, and you know exactly where I'm going with this. Wide right 1, wide right 2, wide left, blocked field goal. So when when those things happen, you say to yourself.
So I know it was like, can they get over the hump?
Yeah, you say to yourself, I'm not going to believe it until I see it. That's where I am with Philly. And it has nothing to do with Joel Embiid. It's that bearded dude. You know what I mean? Like, I need to see him get over that hump. Because the thing about James Harden is that he's obviously a great player. Obviously the numbers make him even greater. But, but when you look at James Harden, there's always something that happens within the playoffs. Like they lost. I remember they played when he was with Houston. They lost to the Spurs in Game 6, and Kawhi didn't even play, and they lost at home, and he went 2 for 10 in that game.
And the audience didn't come back after. It was like either it was a blowout or just the audience just did not. I remember watching that game, just thinking like I thought I saw a lot of empty red seats. It just was like people just collectively, either the players weren't into it, the fans weren't. I remember that game just it was like a gray cloud over the arena. It just was like, why did they look like this? It was only Game 6.
Yeah, and then of course he had a chance to make history. He could have got the job done before, anybody ever beat he could have beat the Warriors with Kevin Durant, except for his team missed 27 straight threes.
Yo, just pump fake and just get a layup.
So this is why, as great as James Harden is, I'm not going to believe it until I see it. Like, he's going to just have to show and prove. He's going to have to make me wrong when I say I don't believe in Philly. Philly's not going to do it. He's just got to go do it to shut me up, because until I see it, he can't do it.
Well, they would have Brooklyn as it stands right now. We're doing the hypothetical as it stands right now. If this holds form through April 15th, Bucks, Hawks, Bucks all the way. Your 2-7 matchup, Celtics, Heat. The Heat are scrappy.
That could be tricky.
They are scrappy,
and they know Boston very well.
Do they have firepower? It's cool to be able to knuckle up in a fight, but when the gun come out.
Hey, but I know Hero's having a career year, and they did just pick up Kevin Love. So I mean, at least from a rebounding standpoint,
Kevin Love got the same amount of gray hair, so I don't know about all that.
I mean, I don't know if he got all this.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. But I would still give Boston the edge. I give it to them in 5. You don't think a Miami team could lose in 5, but I mean the Spurs beat LeBron and the Heat in 5, so like it does happen even for scrappy teams. Sixers, Nets, if they still had KD and Kyrie, I'm like, all right, but I'm gonna go ahead and get after the Sixers. And then your 4 or 5 matchup, Cavaliers, Knicks. The East it doesn't have the same. It doesn't like the potential upset alerts on the East don't ring the same as the West. I think the West is a little closer, and I think the West has a couple of teams that are in the 5, 6, 7 range that you would expect to be 3, 4, 5, and then you got Kings and Memphis who are 2 and 3. Where I don't think people expected Memphis to come back 2 years in a row and play this well. So I think that inverse, you have the whole nostalgia of the Clippers and these old teams like, Golden State at 5 and the Suns with KD. So you have a little bit more of a mix. The East seems to be a little bit more like 1, 2, 3, and 4 are going to win their first round series.
Yeah. If Cleveland was in the West, they might have a shot. They just running into the buzzsaws known as Boston, Milwaukee, and Philly, so, I mean, it is what it is, but, the West is, before the Suns got KD, even if Dallas would have got Kyrie, the West can go many different ways, Steph has been out. So I don't think it would shock anybody if the Warriors went through, I don't think it would catch people off guard. We might be off guard just because we know the road record, you know what I mean? But I don't think many people would be shocked if the Warriors ended up in the NBA Finals again, just because of their pedigree. But in the East, if it's not one of those 3, it's a shock.
Shock, yeah.
And somebody made a lot of money, probably.
Yeah, it'd be like the guys in Vegas are loving that.
Yeah, what's his name? Mattress Mac, you know what I'm saying? Maybe he made some money.
Whatever he bets on, man, bet it gets.
Yeah. So
if he bet $1 million, bet everything you got in your bank account on somebody else, because he hadn't picked the winner in a minute.
So do you think he's out there betting on the Bears trading Justin Fields?
To me, it seems like unnecessary smoke and mirrors. I'll give you an example, of something else, but I think that's like unnecessary just to get to the point. I remember I went to a club. I was in Germany. I used to go to clubs all the time. I used to hang out all the time. I had my crew of people. We hang out all the time. So this one guy, I knew him through other people. Seemed pretty cool. I'm like, all right, man. Like, I'll roll with you since I know how to get to all the clubs. He's like, I'll drive. I'm like, all right, bet. So we get to the club. Standards Club is called the Natrix. Shout out to the Natrix. If you were in Germany from 01 to 05, you went to the Natrix. If you talk slick, you probably got beat up by an army dude or a security guard or something, or a Turkish dude. Somebody put hands on you. But other than that, if you were in there trying to have a good time, it was a great place. It was a big club. It was like a warehouse, had like multiple levels. Crazy club. The ratio was probably 60-40 female male. Like, I mean, you were in there. All you had to do was just be there, be present in the moment, keep it authentic. So I remember this guy was standing next to me. He's like, let's go talk to these girls. I'm like, all right, they're not looking at us, but whatever, let's see. So we walked over there, and he was like, hey, what's going on? We're pilots. I'm like, why? None of that was necessary. You didn't need to insert that lie or that deception into this conversation to get a real conversation going. So with the Bears, it's like, there's no reason you're going to trade Justin Fields. You're going to get nothing for him. If I'm any team, if I'm the Raiders, if I'm Seattle, if I'm the Jets, if I know you have the #1 pick and you just drafted this guy, if I throw you a 5th-round pick and you give him up, oh, absolutely. I'm taking on a 6'4", 230-pound guy who set an NFL record for rush yards for a quarterback, and he's 24 years old. Yeah, I'll take him for a 5th-round pick, but I'm not giving you anything else to give you more capital and you get to keep the #1 pick. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me. So for them to even float this out there, it's ridiculous. If they want to say, hey, we're willing to trade out of #1 if someone wants to come up to 1, that's an honest conversation. You don't have to play your whole hand and say, hey, we want X, Y, and Z. It's like, say, hey, we'll fill calls for #1. But to put out this other information or even have this information leaked that they're willing to move Justin Fields, it doesn't make any sense, considering that San Francisco really needs to move the guy that they traded hell and earth to get to. No one's talking about moving him, but the guy who actually performed behind this terrible offensive scheme that they had. And granted, yeah, they lost 10 games in a row, but it's not his fault. The team wasn't good. The team's not built good. And the fact that they are entertaining or even putting out rumors or information that they're willing to trade Justin Fields is evidence that whomever is calling the shots over there, if they're willing to trade Justin Fields, they should just go ahead and quit.
Well, see, it goes back to what I said, though. Like, you always hear that there's a coach that we think is pretty decent. Everybody thinks is pretty decent, but he wasn't hired by the current administration. And I think that could be what Justin Fields is dealing with, was he wasn't the GM that's in place now wasn't the GM that drafted him. He just took over last year. So he's not Justin Fields is not his guy. You know, the issue that I have is Justin Fields is not only a decent quarterback, you know, but he's the best running back on the team too. And I don't mean that as an insult by calling him a running back, but that's just how good he is. You know, I think that he's got some things to work on. Obviously, we've seen him overthrow some open receivers or whatever, but that team needs a little bit of everything. So you would like to trade the pick and get as much capital back as you could, you know, because I don't see, like, if you trade Justin Fields and draft Bryce Young, you just ended up with the same guy in some ways.
You're apples for apples. And
yeah.
He's 30 pounds lighter and 4 inches shorter.
Yeah, if you're trading to get Anthony Richardson, he didn't even complete 55% of his passes in college. You know, if you get Will Levis, you just got a tall dude that you're hoping turns into Josh Allen. You know, if you get CJ Stroud, you know, what does that look like? You know, so I'm looking at, you keep seeing me look away because I'm looking at the draft order here. And I'm trying to figure out where, if Justin Fields was to get traded, I'm trying to figure out where that is. So, like, the only things that I could see, and these are still, like, last-ditch attempts of finding a trade, you know, but, like, maybe the Raiders, you know, But I'm sure they're hoping, and according to your source, they're hoping for Aaron Rodgers. You know,
Going on Nevada.
I'm looking at Tennessee. Depending on what they decide to do with Tannehill. Because it's obviously, you bring it up all the time. Malik Willis ain't Vrabel's guy.
Not unless I'm reading it wrong. Even in he yanked him in the preseason game.
Yeah.
For not throwing the ball. Instead of saying he went out there and made plays, he yanked him in the preseason. And then in the post game press conference told people why he yanked him.
I think if you're the Jets, it could be interesting. But I think I would more so like Derek Carr there, if you could get Derek Carr.
You said the Jets trade for Justin Fields?
No, I'm saying I don't see it. Like, I could see people floating the idea, but I don't think I see it like as an actual good move.
Number 2 overall, but they took Zach Wilson. So if I'm Justin, I'm not going there anyway.
And then as I look down, I'm looking at this, Tampa is way down as far as draft capital. Tampa is way down at 19, and allegedly Kyle Trask is going to be their starting quarterback. Obviously, Justin Fields is probably better than Kyle Trask. But if you're Tampa, do you look at that? So I'm looking at, and I just don't.
But okay, that's interesting, because I don't think you're gonna get. I don't think you can get multiple teams willing to offer a first round pick.
Okay.
But Tampa Bay at 19, because they have no other QB on the roster that's taken real NFL snaps. I can see that being a phone call that you take, simply because they're in a division that you can win with a serviceable quarterback. So, like I said, I'm not a proponent of trading Justin Fields. I don't think anyone's going to give him a first-round pick. But if someone were to give him a first-round pick, you said 19 with Tampa Bay?
Yep, 19. Tampa's 19. And the only other so the teams that I'm thinking about, just looking at the draft order, the teams that I'm looking at, and I don't think these are likely, but these are just the teams that would maybe make a call, is the Raiders at 7, Carolina at 9, Tennessee at 11, depending on what they want to do with Tannehill, and Tampa, like I just mentioned. Everybody else, I think, is set. Like, everybody, Detroit's not going to get them.
I saw something that had Detroit taking Richardson.
Yeah, I don't know why. Seattle is interesting just because Geno Smith is a free agent, and there have been reports saying that Seattle may still look at drafting a quarterback. So Seattle could be a potential trade for the number 1 pick, maybe, but I don't know if they go after Justin Fields. So Seattle could be interesting. Like, that was just something that just popped into my head just now as I was.
New Orleans at 29. If they're willing to move, I think the only team that's willing to move a first-round pick.
Well, New Orleans is at. Okay, never mind. Go ahead.
Yeah, New Orleans at 29. They got it from Denver. Oh, wait, hold on.
I think I got New Orleans at 10.
I think what I have somebody else's like projected with the trades and everything else. I don't have like that regular draft order.
So it looks like originally New Orleans was 10, but Philly has that now. And New Orleans has San Francisco's 29. So it looks like New Orleans is 29, but it's San Francisco, but they got it from San Francisco.
Okay.
but yeah, like New Orleans could be a player, but I know you mentioned that you like Derek Carr there. So, and I know that they've had conversations with Derek Carr.
Derek Carr, I think he would like being there too, because like I said, it's
yeah, because like Houston, it doesn't make sense to make the trade because, like you aren't going to offer enough coming from number 2 to move up 1 spot.
Remember Chicago moved up 1 spot ahead of San Francisco to take Mitchell Trubisky when it was going to take a defensive lineman anyway?
Yep.
Who wanted Mitchell Trubisky? Yeah,
so Houston, it depends on what you want. Is there a particular quarterback that you want? Like,
or do you want a quarterback?
Yeah, because like you got, for all intents and purposes, from my vantage point, it's Stroud or Young. Like I don't think any quarterback is really that standout guy in this draft, but it's either Young or Stroud. So unless Houston,
Davis Mills trade down to 8 and try to get some draft capital.
yeah. So unless you just want one of those two specific guys, I don't see the move. Because Levis, for as much crap as I give him, he does have Josh Allen qualities to some degree, but he's not the runner that Josh Allen is.
Did he have 20 passing touchdowns in college football? if you didn't like, who didn't? A few guys I remember got drafted pretty high. They didn't have 20 pass. Blaine Gabbert was in the spread offense out of Missouri. Didn't have 20 touchdowns. I remember looking at Trent Dilfer's numbers. Didn't have 20 touchdowns. Who else didn't have any numbers? Okay, well, if you look at Mac Jones, you look at the Bryce Young Mac Jones comparison. Mac Jones stood behind the best offensive line in America and was never had to slide in the pocket or anything.
And look at those receivers he had too.
And he had a Heisman wide receiver. Then he had big
John Mechie.
Then he had Williams. I mean, it's like the talent level around these Alabama quarterbacks for some reason doesn't give anybody pause. But remember the Texas Tech quarterback conundrum that they were having? None of them could get drafted because they were in the spread offense. And everyone's saying, oh, it doesn't translate. But yet Michael Crabtree was a top 10 wide receiver. It's like, make it make sense to me. Is it the offense or is it the player? And I think that anyone who gets on TV and definitively says this guy is blah, 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 even though there's like evidence to the contrary, like Andrew Luck looked like an NFL quarterback. He played in a pro style offense, a bunch of tight ends. He didn't have, a bunch of wide receivers that ran 4.3s. He just had like your future tech savvy wide receivers out there running routes and tight ends. RG3 looked like a track star. He was like, well, everybody in the NFL is fast. They'll catch up to him. And they did. And they kept hitting him. And he kept getting hurt. If you look at even Trevor Lawrence, I remember watching Trevor Lawrence, even the games where he lost, and I think when he lost to Ohio State, I was like, I remember when he dropped back and let that ball go. I was like, oh, this guy knows what he's doing. Mm-hmm. And I seen a very similar play in the NFL when he threw a touchdown to Zay Jones. It's like he got on his back foot and he let it go. Like he saw where Zay Jones was supposed to be and he fit it in that window. A lot of these guys are throwing a wide open windows. We saw Anthony Richardson's, almost Anthony Hamilton, think about, the songbird, but we saw his highlight reel. It was like a 3-minute video somebody posted in the group. I mean, the dude looked like a man amongst boys, but then you look at his numbers, 54% completion percentage. Or where you probably get some of the fastest wide receivers in America out of the state of Florida.
Mm-hmm.
They're running wide open, and you're 54%.
Well, see, the one pass, if you will, that I might give Anthony Richardson is he did have some, you always get that quarterback in the NFL like Derek Carr who goes through offensive coordinators, that happened to Alex Smith as well. They just go through coordinators. So he did have that going for him, but still you could probably complete a little bit better than 54% of your passes, regardless of who your coordinator is. I think a lot of people see some Cam Newton in him, whereas I don't see it.
Offensive end that throws the football.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't see the Cam Newton comparison outside of he's just a big dude. You know what I mean? That like we see run. So from that standpoint, yeah, he could be Cam Newton. But I think Cam came into the league and broke the rookie record for passing yards in the first 2 games. Anthony Richardson ain't doing that.
I think people thought Cam was doing that because the knock on Cam was that they were like with the offense that he ran in Auburn, it was a number system. So like the coach would flash in, 6, he would look at his wristband. And I think in an interview, he said it that way. He said it real simple, but I think the play call might've been difficult, but the signal was just, all right, the wristband said 6. And then I don't think he said 6 is Y bang X over, check with me, go route 9-7 out. Kill, bunny, or whatever. You know how these plays are always crazy. Yeah. But I think he was like, the wristband would say 6. I'll get the guys in the huddle to play, and then we would line up, and then So I think people knocked him for that as if he couldn't understand defense. It's like, if he can understand the college defense, he can understand the NFL defense. It's like, but can you make the play? And I think with Justin Fields, he's shown that he can make the play. Now, can you get? Because me and you, I think we were texting, and it was like I said, the Washington game. It's like, just tell him to hit that check down, or give him a check down as his first read, or the tight end as his first read, and then the wide receivers, as you go deeper, go from line of scrimmage deep versus, guys like Aaron Rodgers, Mahomes, Herbert, a lot of these other guys. Their first read might be the seam route, then the deep out route, and then maybe the slot post route, and then the check down. Just flip it for them. Like, all right, man, your first read is going to be here, then the tight end, and then this end cut route. Because it's all happening the same speed. But if you can get him to get the ball out of his hand quicker, he doesn't get unnecessarily hit, because he was getting rocked in that Washington game. And he still ran it down to the goal line. And then from that game on is when he went on his tear running the ball. So it wasn't like he was shell-shocked or afraid of the moment. Like, you have to look at other things besides the win-loss record. You have to look at, okay, is our coach a good coach? He might not be, because if I'm sitting in my house saying, hey, man, how about you tell him to throw the ball in that first read? Because I'm watching the whole game. He do the hip twitch like he's going to throw it, and then throw it. Every drive, I'm like, listen, just let it go. Give him tight end drag routes. Those are easy. 6'5" type Komet coming across the middle in an orange jersey. You're 6'4", he's 6'5". Just dump it off to him. Let him run. Stop getting hit unnecessarily on these blitzes.
Well, the Bears, you have the number 1 draft pick for a reason, and it's not due to
Smith said, hey, watch this.
Yeah, it's not due to injuries. This isn't a team that had projections or whatever the case, and then they just had injuries and finished worse than projected. We knew the Bears were going to be in last place in that division. We knew the Bears were probably going to be bottom 4 in the league.
He was going to win it. Yep.
Yeah. So from that standpoint, get this man some wide receivers, unless you think, Chase Claypool is going to turn into Odell Beckham somehow. He doesn't have receivers. He doesn't have a good offensive line. So that's why you trade the pick, not him, because you got a lot of holes to fill on that team that don't have to do with him. And the best part, he's still under this rookie contract. So you don't need to give up on him, right? Just like the Jets, right? You don't need to give up on Zach Wilson. He doesn't need to be a starter per se.
No, Zach Wilson's not good. He's giving you nothing.
No, I know he's not good, because Mike White from Western Kentucky University, came in there and showed that man how you quarterback in New York or New Jersey.
Yeah.
But my point is, Justin Fields is still under his rookie contract. So you don't have a reason to pull a trigger yet to say this isn't going to work. He's not going to be a guy, whatever the case. Like, you still have a year or two to figure that out, But like I said, I think, I don't think he's going to get traded. I think this is just something nice to talk about, and it's something controversial to get people talking. I don't think it's really on the table to trade him.
I'm not sure. Like, that's the thing. Like, as a Browns, not Browns, excuse me, because that's what I'm saying. They're acting like the Browns. As a Bears executive, it's like you don't need to say that you're a pilot. Just have the conversation. Just walk up, have the conversation, and see where it goes. You don't need the smoke and mirrors. Like, you don't need to float the idea that you're willing to trade your quarterback that you have in place for what? Because you're trading a pick. I guarantee you, if anyone wants to get the 1, before the Justin Field conversation started, if I needed to get from 6, 7, 4 to 1, whatever the case may be, if I need to get the 1, I'm going to give you my top 10 pick for this year that we have, probably a second this year that we have, a second next year, and a third or a fourth next year. Like, I think that's kind of the going number. Like, we swap picks for the first round this year. So you go from 1 to 4, and you get my second this year, my second next year, and my fourth next year. I think that's like the bare minimum for teams to move up historically. Like,
well,
not. So like if I'm going from 1 to 4 and I'm getting another second round pick, so that gives me the 4th overall pick, which is going to allow me to get probably the 3rd best player, because normally somebody's going to reach for a quarterback that might not be better than Will Anderson. It might not be better than like some offensive tackle out of Iowa or Purdue or something like that. So I might get the 2nd or 3rd best player in the draft. Then I get 2 second-round picks. So now I bundle those 2 second-round picks I got to jump back into 19 to get that wide receiver that fell. Like it's simple. It's not even. It doesn't need to be this complicated. You don't need to walk up to this this group of females and say you're a pilot. You can just walk up and say your name. You don't need all this extra stuff. Just walk up and say, "Hey, what's up? Let's make this deal."
I think that if somebody does trade up for the number 1 pick, I think Indy is probably the most likely culprit. Just because I've heard Irsay, now it could just be talk, but Irsay has made it sound like he's interested in the number 1 pick. Now, I don't know who that would be. From what I've heard, what I've read today, allegedly, because a couple episodes ago, I talked about Phillip Rivers giving Shane Steichen the approval, giving the Colts the approval of him. But I saw today that it looks like Peyton Manning may have given the approval for Will Levis. So, it's a crapshoot right now. Like, we don't know what's going to happen. We'll figure it out as it gets closer. But it's great conversation. It's a lot to think about, but I don't see who the team is that wants Justin Fields right now. Unless they just see something that hasn't happened yet. They can see the future or whatever the case. I don't see that team that wants Justin Fields. So they have to trade. They do have to trade the number 1 pick, because even if they draft a great player at number 1, if they draft, Will Anderson or Jalen Carter, and they just happen to be the truth, like, you're still not filling the rest of the needs.
Yeah. If you trade with Indy, you can go from 1 to 4. Like, let's see. Let's do a little historical research and find out how St. Louis got to 1 to get Jared Goff. All right, so I'm gonna pull this up real quick.
All right.
So
yeah. So
if you're the coach GM, I'm the Bears GM. You call me, give me your pitch.
So say that again.
You're the coach GM.
I'm trying to get Fields.
No, you're trying to get the 1.
Oh, I'm trying to get the number 1. Okay.
Yeah.
So all right, I'm gonna say, hey, I'm gonna give you my 1st round draft pick, so we can swap. I'm gonna give you my 2nd round pick for this year. And I'll give you 2/3, or I'll give you a 1/3 for next year and a 2nd or a 3rd in the following draft. So 2 drafts away.
So I'm going from 1 to 4.
1 to 4.
You give me a 2nd.
Yep, for this year.
1 to 4. You're gonna give me your 2nd, which should be around the 35th pick, because there's only 30 picks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting the 35th pick overall. I already have the 32nd pick. And then you give me what else this year?
A 3rd next year.
3rd next year.
And then a 3rd the year after. Or a 2nd. You could talk me into a 2nd.
All right, cool. You give me I'll take the 4th pick this year. I'll take a 2nd and a 3rd this year and a 4th next year.
I can roll with that.
Now that deal can be made. You take the 2nd and 3rd you got, because you take your best guy in the next round at 32,
mm-hmm.
and you trade either your 2 third-round picks you now have to move into the 2nd round, or you trade your 2nd and 3rd round pick to move back into the 1st round.
Right.
You're getting 3 or 4 players. All right, so
yeah, and you got your teams like you mentioned last week. You got your teams like Kansas City, who has a lot of picks. You know what I mean? They're the Super Bowl champions. They got Patrick Mahomes. A team like that might be willing to move later into the draft
to let you get back to 31 and let you back to 29.
Right.
April 14, 2016, the Rams sent their 1st round pick, their 2nd round pick, their 3rd round pick, 2017 1st round pick, and a 2017 3rd round pick to the Titans to get the 1. And then the Eagles essentially did the same thing 6 days later to get Carson Wentz. So the Rams gave up 2016 first, second, and third, and the 2017 first and third. So I'll take that same deal if I'm.
Yeah, I guess you just add on another first round pick to what we said.
So that's it. So if you're Indy, you're like, yo, we're a good team. If we get the one to get Bryce Young, we're 10-7, especially with our division. We can go 4-2 in our division. I mean, Jacksonville is hot, but teams go from worst to first all the time. Houston's probably not going to be that much better because I don't think Houston's going to make any moves with their number 2 pick because I think they feel like they have to take C.J. Stroud. Chicago is just, I mean, what does Shannon say? Him and Skip, they're in the catbird seat.
Mm-hmm.
They're literally sitting in the best position. They can literally walk away from this draft they can get 5 picks from Indy in conversation and then flip every one of those other picks after 4.
And at four, they can grab Will Anderson or Jalen Carter or a lineman, and then later they can get their receiver to put next to Claypool.
Exactly. Then if you look at it like, okay, here we go. Who's late? Who's in the 20s? Seattle, Chargers, Baltimore, Minnesota. Minnesota's drafting 23.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where they lost in the playoffs?
But even then, like I don't know if your division partner is going to deal with you in that way.
Buffalo at 27.
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo will take a second and a third to drop out of the first round because they need a tight end, a guard, a center, defensive tackle, and safety.
Like we mentioned earlier.
Are you getting the best at any of these positions at 27?
Probably not. But we also mentioned earlier, Tampa at 19 is interesting. Because they could put because like if say, Stroud and Young are going to be gone. We already know that. I'm not buying the Richardson hype, that he's going to be in the top 10 or, whatever. You got Levis out there. So Tampa could fall back and grab a quarterback, early second round or
just sign a free agent.
Sign a free agent. Yeah.
Get Taylor Heineke. I think Taylor Heineke in Tampa is a good move. It's a good bridge. Or you start Trask and you have Heineke as a backup. He can play. He's played in playoffs. I know he's not your guy because
he is my guy. I don't know why we sat. Oh, you did that on purpose. Never mind. I'm not falling for this.
No.
But anyway,
I scrolled up to 16 and because I looked, I was like, okay, well, Tyler Heineke is available.
Well, Heineke isn't my guy for the future, but I definitely didn't want Carson Wentz in the first place. I'll just put it like that. But I could talk myself into Jalen Carter if, he was available to Washington. But is Jalen Carter going to fall in the draft to where Washington might be able to get him?
Depends on how good his lawyer is. Because, like I said, we talked about the tragic shooting of the young mother last week. And when like I said in our pre-conversation, I pulled up a couple of things. Because I've always been very interested in the law. I think the way it's used is intriguing in the Constitution and everything else. What I've read, the research that I've done for Jalen Carter, it just says that he's been indicted on charges related to the crime, but I don't know what they are. And I'm not sure because the reason I guess he was, for lack of a better word, targeted by the police was that his story that he gave to police was inconsistent, either with the facts that they found out later or the fact that he was there, like maybe some kind of video evidence that he was closer to the scene than he first brought up. But I'm not sure exactly what you charge him with because he isn't operating the other vehicle. And there's a report that came out a couple of days ago that sadly the staffer, Chandler LaCroix, she was driving, her blood alcohol content was twice the legal limit. So do you charge someone else, even if they were racing? Can you charge him with the crime when the operator of the vehicle was under the influence? That's not on him. So you can't say, oh, because they crashed because they were racing, or they crashed because the driver was under an influence.
So real quick, I want you to continue, but real quick. So what I found was he's facing misdemeanor charges of reckless driving and racing.
So they made him turn himself in for a misdemeanor and mugshot him for a misdemeanor?
Took him from the combine.
Jaywalk is a misdemeanor.
Yeah, but go ahead, continue. I want you to continue. I just wanted to throw that out there.
So this is just the matter. I think hopefully he didn't. I'm going to say hopefully. I don't want to give legal advice. If you don't give a statement after you get arrested and you get one of those lawyers who might have graduated from Georgia and they kind of handle this, because I don't know what crime you can charge him with in connection to the death. I don't think you can link. I don't think you can levy a charge against him that's going to allow you to prosecute him for the deaths of these two young people. So all you can get him on is just misdemeanors, lying to the police. It might hurt his draft stock. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Depends on who gets in the room and has a conversation with him first. So if he gets in the room and he gets the full support of Kirby Smart and the full support of the defensive coordinator and the full support of the AD, not necessarily publicly, but in conversations with teams who are drafting second, third, fourth, fifth, up to eighth, and they call and say, hey, what's going on? Atlanta's right there at 8. You can always use a good defensive tackle pass rush. And the Falcons fans I'm always on it like this. They are like, yo, how is it that Georgia has all of these players, they play all their bowl games in our building, and yet we don't draft a single one of them early in the draft?
It's because of DJ Shockley.
Yo, he works with the team. He breaks down film. He posts like a little video every week breaking down like the best pass play or the best defense play or whatever. But and I'm not saying that it should be ignored. And it's a talent versus tolerance situation, and that should be the only exclusionary discretion you use. But it's very sad that that these young people lost their lives, but in the same sense, the operator of the vehicle was intoxicated. If he was driving the car and crashed and he was racing and someone inside the vehicle passed, then that's on him. But you can't be like, oh, well, you made them race. You made her drive 104 miles an hour, and they said with a 2021 Ford Expedition. So it could have hurt his draft stock. I think it might. I think he might slip either late in the first round or out of the first round entirely, or maybe enough information comes out over the next 6 or 7 weeks that shows that maybe this charge isn't even they can't prosecute it because it's a misdemeanor. So I don't know. It just depends on how it plays out legally versus how it plays out publicly, because the way it's being, the thumbnails and the clicks are making it seem as if his involvement led to their death. He bumped them with the car and they lost control, but it's just a matter of he just was also just involved, and it's not to that extent that you can charge him with their death. So it just depends on how people want to view it. How does he interview? How does the people who are in the room and advocate for him? I think that's probably the biggest key.
Well, Jalen Carter wants us to know quote, "There is no question in my mind that when all of the facts are known, that I will be fully exonerated," I love that word, "of any criminal wrongdoing," end quote.
Could have kept that to yourself.
Yeah, so
listen, we expect you to feel that way. Just shut up.
so
Right? Remain silent. Like, listen, all people listening to this, it is the first thing they say to you. You have the right to remain silent. Do not try to defend yourself in the court of public opinion. It is irrelevant what the public thinks. Yes, it can drive the needle. It can make people want to prosecute you. You do not have to defend yourself against a citizen on Twitter. You defend yourself against the court of the state that you're in, the state you're being charged. That's it. Shut your mouth. Let the law do what the law does. Don't go out here on Twitter and Instagram. Don't be out here reckless driving anymore. Don't drive at all.
So, back when Todd McShay was talking about how bad of a locker room guy Jalen Carter was.
Character issues, yes.
Yeah. So this does not, and I want to say this to people that, because I've heard people say this story does not make Todd McShay correct.
Yeah,
because
correct.
Yeah, he was talking about actual on the field football related locker room stuff. So looking at this situation, what Todd McShay should have reported if he knew,
if he ever had facts, but that's cool.
Yeah, was that back in September, Jalen Carter got pulled over for doing an 89 and a 45. So this reckless driving may be a bit of a pattern. Like pattern might be elite, but this is more than one.
Pattern is elite. Listen, I know we're part of the media now. We got our own show. We got to be realistic.
Hey, look.
19, I got pulled over doing 97 on I-95 trying to get to the train station to catch my flight to Vegas. So it wasn't reckless. I could have got the ticket. I could have got the
okay.
To pull me over. He checked my license and he sent me on my way. But I still drive over 85 right now in a 65.
But not to compare situations, because I know they happened on the same day with the whole Brandon Miller situation. But the point that I made last week was, if Brandon Miller was the dude at the end of the bench, this is a lot different. He's probably not on the team anymore. So this cop that pulled Jalen Carter over for doing the 89 and the 45 told him, quote, "Your break is that you're not going to jail. That would make the news, right? Maybe you should text your teammates and tell them to slow down," end quote.
Sounds like Georgia players got cars from car dealerships and they're driving around this little town and the cops are getting sick of it.
Yeah, it sounds like NIL gone wild. That's what it sounded like.
NIL deal at the car dealership. All these dudes got Chargers and Durangos that are supercharged up and they're driving around recklessly. Yes, it happens. But I'll let me go. I'll flash my little Master military ID. And he was like, "Where you going?" Like, "Listen, I got to catch a train. I'm going to Vegas. Had a good time in Vegas that weekend." But it happens. So, like I said, with him, I do think, and I don't want to equate everything to every time there's a draft, there seems to be this insatiable search to find what the player did wrong, what the player had wrong in their life they had to overcome, or what the player can't do at the next level. It just feels so negative. So for Jalen Carter, it's unfortunate that their behavior put them in this position. And it's unfortunate that this young lady and this young man lost their lives in that car accident. It was two other people in the car that survived. Right. And if you read it, it sounds like it says, "Failed to negotiate a left curve, resulting in the vehicle striking the curb and the front panels of the tire, leaving the roadway, going to strike a Georgia Power telephone pole, and cutting the pole in half." No, utility pole cutting them in half. So I'm guessing it cut the vehicle in half, not the individual. I think it just probably hit the pole when they hit the curb, turning left, and the people I don't know where people were sitting, but two people survived, and then unfortunately 2 young people lost their lives.
Yeah, so when I sat around, playing around, trying to do some mock draft I originally had Jalen Carter going number 3 to the Cardinals. I think he does fall, but I don't think he falls, like, I don't think he comes crashing down, if you will. I think that I could see him going somewhere between 11 and 18, so I think he falls, but I think he stays within that
I don't
top.
think, honestly.
I think he may fall. I mean, obviously, it depends on what we find out going forward. But as of this moment, with the limited knowledge that we have right now, I think there's a chance that he falls. Now, 2 weeks from now, we might find out some other stuff and it's all over with, and we just move on and he goes number 3 to the Cardinals. But as in the moment, getting pulled from the combine is just, and that I think that's the part that I'm focused on where it might hurt his draft stock, is that he had to leave the combine to go talk to the police. Like, that's not a good look, no matter what the situation is.
Yeah, I think you're correct that there's potential that he's going to fall. For him, just from speaking for Jalen, not like I said, it's very unfortunate that these two people passed. But I think the gift and the curse for him is that this happened at the beginning of March. So if his innocence is to the level that he is claimed on whatever social media platform or whatever platform he put that information on, as far as like his exoneration, if it is clean, like if it's just a matter of they were racing and she literally drove and she was way ahead of them and he slowed down and then the crash happened and then he rolled up after the fact, because I think that's the story that was.
Yeah, like allegedly he said that he was about a mile away, a mile behind them. So he ended up coming up to the scene, seeing the car.
Yeah. So depends on what kind of street you're on. I know I've been to Arizona. I don't know if you've been to Phoenix. It's I went to Phoenix once. I was driving like a 05 Nissan Altima. This was like, I think it was 06. And some dude rolled up next to me and was like revving his engine trying to race, because Phoenix is a grid, like the whole city. So if he does have that, if that's something that he does and he goes to Phoenix, then he needs to have a true maturity 180. If you do like the street race and do all this crazy stuff, and when you're behind the wheel of cars and you're number 3 overall pick and you get this big signing bonus and you're out west and it's just flat and straight lines, like, I mean, the whole city, you just take, it's like multiple, like the whole city's a grid. It's just, they're very long. So a lot of opportunity to the loops that go around the city. It's the same way. They filmed, that scene in The Kingdom with Jamie Foxx, like that big chase scene and everything. He filmed that in Arizona, like on that long stretch of road. That's on the outside of Phoenix. It's like Peoria or something like that. So if he does have an issue with his desire to be this speed demon, that's something he's going to have to get under control, because if he gets drafted at his position that people are deeming they should go 2, 3, 4, 5, somewhere in that range, and he gets caught doing it again, he's done. Henry Ruggs, like Vegas is the same way. The Las Vegas Strip is 5 lanes wide on each side. 1 o'clock in the morning, there's nobody out there really driving around. Most people are walking. 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and it looks appealing to someone who likes the speed. So if he really has like this desire to do this, and he can't control himself when he gets behind the wheel and he wants to speed in college, imagine after you give him a few $1 million that he can go buy that souped up whatever car he wants, then he's going to be on 2 strikes coming in.
Oh yeah, I know all about Phoenix and I know all about the racing out there, but unfortunately I lived in Tucson. But and it's amazing to me how different they are, being so close together. They're less than 2 hours apart, but couldn't be more different. But yeah, Jalen Carter, I think, provided, like, he obviously has some issue with speeding. He's a young dude. If you go back and look at my record, I probably got like 6 or 7 speeding tickets within like 3 or 4 year periods at times. So I'm not going to nail him for that per se.
Flash you when you drove in the other. If you're in the wrong lane, it would flash you. So I got a couple
Yeah, so but I think the 89 and the 45 is a little wild. Like obviously, I don't know what the speed limit was on this road that they were on in this particular situation.
This one it says 40.
Okay, and did you have what they went? Oof.
He was doing 104 on the roadway. It says the speed limit was 40.
Yeah, so that's just dumb in the first place. You know what I mean? That's dumb. Unfortunately, because of something dumb, Warren McClendon, who was an offensive lineman for Georgia, and the recruiting staffer Victoria Bowles had to lose their life, and that was totally unnecessary. But going back to what you said, legally, I don't know what. Even if they do say, hey, misdemeanor for reckless driving and, the racing or whatever, like, I don't think that leads him to not having an NFL career. He will be in the NFL provided everything that we know now is the truth.
The next
right.
7 weeks is copacetic. Like I say, you're innocent until proven guilty. It's just unfortunate that you have Dante Stallworth. Remember when he struck a man on the highway in Miami? I think he did a year, maybe 18 months in prison, and he came back to the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Then you had
there was somebody from the Rams, Leonard Little, maybe.
Did he? No, it was Dante Stallworth was one I remember.
Yeah, hold on. I think there was a Leonard. Keep talking though. I think there was a Leonard Little.
Through a kid's football game, the former running back from Nebraska, he went to prison. Remember that story, right?
Yeah, I remember that story. Yep.
Kids playing football in the park, and he drove his car through the park trying to hit him.
Yeah, it was Leonard Little. Back in 1998, played for the Rams, driving drunk, and let's see, what was it? Yeah, I'm reading, but yeah, it looks like they said that it was a fatal accident. So so we've seen this before, like much worse situations.
Yeah.
And players have been able to come back and recover, or whereas with Jalen Carter, like for one, it's a misdemeanor. For two, as far as we can tell, he didn't murder anyone. So I think that he'll be fine as far as his eligibility for the NFL.
Very sad if it comes out that his bumper, bumped the side and caused it. It's sad already. I mean, decision making was. I was 24 a couple of decades ago, so I know that you don't make the greatest decisions. Then you add alcohol, it only makes it worse. We used to get those briefings every Friday. We got them in tech school. We've got them. My first base was Germany, where the legal drinking age for Europeans is 16 in Germany, 18 on base. We were getting briefed all the time about how your behavior changes when you drink, places you go when you drink, don't drive when you drink, call me, I'd rather come pick you up. I mean, I had my commander literally end commander's calls. Listen, I'd rather get out of my bed and come pick you up, no questions asked. It's like, I won't ask you a single thing. I will pick you up. I will take you to your house. I will take you to your room, and we will come to work on Monday and be fine. If you make a habit of it, then we'll have a conversation, obviously. But if you need me to come get you, I will come get you.
Yep. So the overall theme here.
All the time, but post-championship celebration, I just don't understand why people weren't more focused on the players, the young staffers that they have. Like, listen, have a plan, take the party bus, take this. Like, we know you guys are going to go celebrate this championship. Have a plan. And I get people straight from that plan, but it's like, you want to put your arms around all these young people you have, because I remember 21. I remember my 21st birthday party. We all drank Dom Perignon and Moet was spraying all over the place. We had a ball, but I had a designated driver. Everybody that came to the club with us, we had a designated driver. Even at 21, it's like, yo, I knew I was going to do some craziness because I turned 21. And like I said, we was out there drinking Dom Perignon. It tastes like pickle juice. Don't buy it, save you money. Moet just sprays everywhere. It's no good. Save you money. Get some $12 Osties Pomate. You're good to go. But put your arms around these young players and, like, don't just use their bodies for your success. Like, make sure that they're on the right path. It's tough, and everyone's gonna look at it like, oh, that's stupid. Why would you do that? We all done it. Like I said, I was doing 97 trying to get to the train station, but I was trying to just weave through traffic, and just like my car just accelerated.
Yeah.
I get ostracized for it. I didn't get chastised for it. I was like, I just told Trey, like, I'm trying to get to the train station. He was like, all right.
Yeah, bottom line, just don't drink and drive, people. I know, there's the guilty of, I live 5 minutes away, or, like, it's still not worth it, because you just don't know what's waiting out there for you. But Raph, so the story was very alarming. But then, on a lighter note, you said something that alarmed me earlier, but I want to know, is it true? Do you really not have anything to get off your chest?
You know what? This week I've been so in the work in my finals. Anything that I heard, or any, like, I watched Undisputed. They were going back and forth whether or not it was LeBron's left foot that was hurt or the right foot. I was like, I listened to another conversation. This was like, I think it was Colin Cowherd. He was talking about something. It was like, nothing was really like pushing my buttons, like I said. Then on top of that, I'm like I was working on this paper all week. So it was like, I mean, short of just, the Jalen Carter, just another young black man in position to succeed at a high level, putting himself in a position where, like, you don't see tomorrow. I think that's a big deal. But I think, like, that's the same premise I walk with all the time. It's like, you're in a position to do good things for your family, good things for yourself. Try to stay as close as you can to that line and don't stray from it. You can have a good time. You can, like, they could have had a good time and had a sober driver drive them in that expedition. It probably seats 7 people. They could have had the same fun, whatever they're up to, whatever they're trying to go. They all could have been in it with a sober 19-year-old walk-on driving them to wherever they were going, or an Uber, and put it on Kirby Smart's tab. Little things like that. So I think an extension of the Jalen Carter conversation is like that same. This isn't forever. Like, your youth isn't forever. Your football opportunity isn't forever. And it can go away very, very quickly. Learn from Henry Ruggs. Stop driving fast. Go to a racetrack. You can, for like $200, you can get in a race car and do like 2 laps in most places that have racetracks. Martinsville, Virginia, to Vegas, to New Hampshire, they all have like a day where you can just pay a little money and have a race car driver drive you around this oval 4 or 5 laps for a couple $100 and you get that joy. Don't go out here in your Honda Civic or your Subaru or your Kia and try to race somebody. Just be smart. Do smart things. Realize that, like, tomorrow life still can happen if you make the right decisions today. So short of that, really, I think that's like the only, like, extension. Like, listen, make better choices, be better, try to really strive for, good, smart, positive decision making, and let that lead you from day to day.
All right, so Antoine Davis, Detroit Mercy University. This message is for you. So last night, I was searching around for these streams because I was going to watch Detroit against Youngstown State, in the quarterfinals of the Horizon League conference tournament. Conference tournaments are here. Raph, tomorrow we're going to have our first team in March Madness. But anyway, so I was watching this game, and Antoine Davis came into the game 26 points away from breaking Pistol Pete Maravich's all-time NCAA scoring record. Now, before the game, there were people out there that said they were going to put an asterisk by it because he had the 5th year for COVID. Pistol Pete did it in 3 years. He averaged 44 points throughout his college career, no 3-point line and all that good stuff. And I say, look, it's okay to talk about records in context, but If this guy would have broke the record, he breaks the record, at the end of the day. So he fell 3 points short, so I saw some people on Twitter as well saying that he just didn't want it. That's so lazy.
That's 26 shots.
Yeah, he took 26 shots. He only made 7 of them. But my overall message here is I've heard announcers and commentators saying, hey, Detroit can pay to go play in the College Basketball Invitational, the CBI, or the CBI could invite Detroit to the tournament. My message is don't break the record like that. Like you had your chance to break the record last night. You had the 5th extra year. Like, don't go out cheap like that. Like, I know you want the record. I know we would like to see records go down just to be a part of history, but don't do it like that. Do it the right way. Do it during the regular game. Now, if you were in March Madness, obviously that's different. If you were in the NIT, different. Who watches the CBI? What channel does it come on? Who's in it? I've seen it for the last 5 or so years, teams with losing records. And, oh, by the way, just in case you were wondering, Detroit's record is 14-18. So please, Detroit Mercy University, and please, Antoine Davis, don't break the record like that. There is nothing wrong, and this is probably the first time and last time I'll ever say this, there's nothing wrong with being number 2. There's nothing wrong with being number 2. Ask Easy Money Sniper, he's always number 2. I just feel like at this point, it's such a hollow record held by such a loved individual that you just don't want to break it like that.
Well said. And with that being said, we come to an end of another Sports Reports as Ordered. Like I say, you can find us on Instagram. You can find me on Twitter, Fear My Wrath. All right, Mike, where you at?
Instagram, MLDub25. Twitter, 2-Bit Reports.
That's what's up. So once again, thank y'all for checking in. Signing out. Salute.
See you on Tuesday.